This is from NPR, and this is where I'm going to sound, I don't know, maybe a little lefty. Maybe. We'll see. So this has to deal with the federal minimum wage. So NPR has now been 15 years since the federal minimum wage rose to $7.25. I do kind of feel two different ways on this, right? I'm with the Ron Paul, not Rand. I do love me some Rand Paul, but I'm in the Ron Paul camp of just get rid of the minimum wage and let companies compete. But then I'm also of the mindset that if we're not going to do that and we are going to have a minimum wage, to be fair, it should be better. It should not be $7.25 an hour. Again, I know I'm going to lose some of my support on the right on this one. I don't think it does well for our economy to shoot it up. We've seen these states push out there, $15 minimum wage. That's doubling the federal minimum wage. That will and has destroyed businesses trying to keep up. I don't agree with that. I think it needs to go up gradually because, one, folks getting paid minimum wage do deserve more. I don't care if they're flipping burgers or they're just, cleaning the bathrooms or they're doing what, all these little jobs people always reference. It's still a job. It's still a human. Their time is worth something. And I know we can say, these are entry-level jobs. They should be getting entry-level money. Yeah, but $7.25, somebody has to work an entire hour to even afford one of the meals that they're cooking. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's a little crazy. I do think it should be more, but at the same time, and they do to get the short end of the stick and the way that I'm proposing it, it does need to be closer. I don't think it needs to be 15 necessarily. I don't know what it needs to be. We can look at it. We can discuss that. It should be closer to 15 than it is to 7.25, I think. And it would be great to get there tomorrow and get everybody in the minimum wage field where they should be. And then jobs can absolutely compete a little bit more, but then you're also competing against being replaced. So there's that. But by saying that, if it was a slow burn to get there, if it's been 15 years, so let's say we bumped it up to 9-10, I don't think that's going to be enough to make businesses go, you know what, we're done. We're replacing you guys. Bump it up to 9-10, 3, 4, maybe 5 years from now, go up to 12 or 11 something, just a couple dollars here, nothing insane, but a couple of dollars. Over time, it'll get there. I also have a thought of how this should go, but I'll mention that later. Let's go ahead and get into the article and just see what it says. This is from NPR, so I'm always interested to see their slant on things because they definitely have an interesting slant. But with this particular topic, I might line up with them a little bit. So let's see. What fair wages? So that's from they got the masks, which they could just be liberals because they wear masks a lot. No offense, guys. I'm just saying, y'all very cautious. All right. So the most recent hike to the federal minimum wage occurred in July 24th of 2009, back when former President Barack Obama was still in his first year in office, and the Black Eyed Peas topped the Billboard charts because that's relevant, I guess. At that time, it rose 70 cents from $6.55 per hour to $7.25. I've got a little chart down below here we're going to look at. Not my chart, their chart. And it does a pretty good job. Brings back some memories. And it has stayed there for the last 15 years. That's the longest stretch the national minimum wage has gone without an increase since the U.S. instituted the pay standard in 1938, according to a Department of Labor timeline. Meanwhile, the value of the dollar has diminished and prices on everyday goods have taken off. I am not an expert in this, but in the studying that I've done and the research I've done, I appreciated what people have said about when we used to be on the gold standard for our money. And then we got off the gold standard, and the value of our dollar quickly began to diminish. We don't really have anything backing our dollar bills other than the government's word. They don't have, you can't exchange cash money for gold like you could back in the day. I mean, I guess you could buy the gold. Yes, maybe that's the same thing. I don't know. But it's not, it doesn't hold the same value. Whereas you could buy a gold bar back in the day, you can buy a coin now. And because of that, it's affected us on the world stage, but it's definitely affected us here at home for sure. We'll go on, but I do want to mention the gold standard, and I think the concept of that made sense. And I would love to see us get back to some kind of standard so that we're not just printing money and destroying, our monetary system, because we really are. And of course, it is the lower middle class people that suffer the most, because every percentage that you take away from us hits us harder than any percentage you take away from, upper class folks. They don't feel it nearly as much as we do. And I say we. I'm 100% with you guys. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. That's not to say that all minimum wage workers in the U.S. make $7.25 an hour. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, around 869,000 workers in the U.S. earn the federal minimum wage or less in 2023, more than 2/3 of whom were women. We're not going to have that argument right now. Just saying. You want to talk about it? We'll talk about it, though. Says some workers may earn less than the federal minimum wage because there are exceptions built into the law. Businesses are only required to pay tipped employees $2.13 per hour in direct wages under federal law, though employees have to make up the difference if those wages plus tips don't equal the federal minimum wage. Other carve-outs to the minimum wage requirement includes some workers with disabilities, employees under age 20, and full-time students. Walmart takes advantage of that big time with the workers with disabilities thing. They're not just, hey, we're going to do it because we're sweet. No, they get to pay them less. They take full advantage of it. As far as, and I've said this until I'm blue in the face so many times, but these restaurants that only pay $2.13 an hour for wages and then expect them to make the tips on top of that, they're closing their doors. They're saying, oh, we can't find any good help. Do you know if you only paid $1 more an hour or $2 more an hour for the time that you're open? Let's say you have 10 waiters or waitresses, right? And you're open for business. You're a small place. You're open for business for maybe lunch and dinner or just dinner. I don't know. However many hours that is, 10 folks, call it 8 hours. That's 80 hours. $2 is $160 more. Something like that. Did I do the math right? I don't know. Public school, remember? But it's not going to break the bank. But just a dollar or two more an hour plus their tips. Do you know how much more stoked someone would be to work for you than your competition who says, I'm only doing the minimum for you? If you're like, hey, I appreciate my employees so much, I'm going to give you guys a couple dollars more than what I have to because I want the best of the best. Just a couple dollars more can make a huge difference in somebody's life. And that's my opinion. I've pushed that for a long time. If I ever open a restaurant, I truly believe that I would be all in paying my waiters and waitresses more because they are the frontline workers. They are the face of my business. I don't want somebody coming in and doing a crummy job. I can replace them in a heartbeat if I'm paying more. They have more incentive to work harder if I'm paying them more, right? And ultimately, my business is going to benefit by having the best people in the right positions. But I get it. I'm not there. I can't speak to it. I can only assume what I would do. But whatever. Moving on. In 20 states, mostly in the South and Midwest, the federal minimum wage is in effect. According to the Economic Policy Institute, the other 30 states and Washington, D.C. have minimum wages higher than the federal standard, according to EPI data. Additionally, at least 63 cities and towns, including New York City and Los Angeles, have local minimum wages higher than their state's requirement, with new wage hikes still occurring, according to EPI. Chicago's minimum wage rose to $16.20 per hour this month. 2022, the Biden administration also increased the minimum wage for 70,000 federal workers and 300,000 federal contractors to $15 per hour and urged Congress to do the same for all workers. Now, here's a fun chart. I think you guys can see the whole thing here. The federal minimum wage hasn't increased since 2009. So this is our actual minimum wage, 25 cents an hour back in 1938. And since 2009, it's been $7.25 an hour. Up here, we got this dotted line. This shows adjusted for inflation. So when it started, 25 cents an hour in 1938 is equivalent to $5.57 an hour today, or as of June of 2024, so as of last month. So we're not far off from where it started. That is adjusted for inflation, and I don't know how they figure that. If it's just the inflation of the dollar bill, but then when you look at the inflation of all the other goods and services as well, I don't think 557 would be cutting it, because I don't think the 725 is cutting it, right? So you see here, the peak was in 1968, the equivalence of $14.44 an hour. And then since then, due to inflation and due to the lack of the increase of federal minimum wages, it's just gone down more and more and more and more, to where now we're looking at $7.25 an hour versus I'm trying to see. Yeah, it hasn't been that low in value since 1949. 528 hours. The last time it was less was in 1949 when adjusted for inflation. I think we're far overdue for an increase in minimum wage, be it federal minimum wage or whatever, I don't care. I think we're past due for an increase in minimum wage. Again, I'm looking at this chart. I remember my minimum wage. Let's see. I know I cleared it off your screen. I'm looking at mine. When I started, minimum wage was $5.15 an hour. It was $5.15 an hour, and at the time, adjusted for inflation, that would be equivalent to $9.40 an hour right now. So I was making the equivalence of $2.15 more than what today's actual minimum wage is. And I remember I was doing okay. I mean, I was, 16-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid, whatever. What was I? 16-year-old kid, bagging groceries, getting tips back when people used to do that. And even the other jobs after that, I was doing okay for, little high school kid going into college or whatever. Or I think people have a hard time with that with $7.25 an hour right now. So yeah, I do think it needs to go up. I don't think there ever needs to be something so drastic that the market and that businesses and our economy as a whole can't adjust accordingly. I know people say this, and I think it's dumb. If you've said this, I don't think you're dumb. I think the sentiment is dumb. Well, if someone should get $15 an hour for flipping burgers, then EMTs should get paid $15 an hour, or they should get paid more than $15. You are making an absolutely factual statement. The problem, though, with that is not the minimum wage being $15 an hour. It's that they're only paying the EMTs such and such amount, whatever it was. because a lot of these businesses have failed. Even though they've been profitable, they have failed to increase their payout, right, through payroll, wages, whatever. They've failed to increase those accordingly based off of their own personal growth. We see that all the time with the corporate greed stuff like Disney and all these major corporations laying folks off because of, money and monetary issues and all this and that, while they're giving their CEO multi-million-dollar bonuses. It just doesn't make any sense. Again, I hinted at this earlier. Something that I think would be great. Again, this is just kind of a thought that I've had, but Congress can vote to give itself a raise, right? I think there needs to be some caveats to that, right? So first, I don't think Congress should be able to give itself a raise if we have not decreased our federal deficit. If we are still if we still have a deficit, let me reword that, because deficit and debt are two different things. We've discussed that before. If we have not decreased our debt, if we are adding more into our debt, meaning that we do have a deficit, then I don't think they should be able to give themselves a raise because they haven't done a good job with our money. So why should they get more money? Secondly, I think minimum wage should be tied to what they increase. So if they give themselves a 3, 4, 5, 6% increase, then I think that we need to take a look and see if maybe federal minimum wage needs to have that same increase. I don't know how that goes. Just a pitch, just a thought. Something's crossed my mind before. I hate the idea that Congress can get up there, do absolutely nothing, and continue to give themselves their own raises and attaboys and all that good fun stuff, while we are getting deeper and deeper in the hole, more and more in debt. The economy's not improving. Minimum wage hasn't increased. People's lives are getting worse overall, but they can give themselves a raise. Doesn't sit well with me. Doesn't make sense to me. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. Maybe I'm onto something, or maybe I'm just out of my mind. I don't know. What do you guys think? Should the minimum wage be increased? Do you have a number that you'd like to see it increase to? Do you think it should be an immediate thing, something that happens over time? Or do you think we should just abolish it altogether? What are your thoughts on it? I would love to hear what you have to say in the comment section below.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip from the Morning Mayhem. Remember, this is just a portion of the full show that comes out every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you hadn't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the full shows or these tasty little nuggets.